boy had been on the streets for 3 months now. Just 3 months, but it felt like years. He was only 12, small for his age, with keen eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes had saved him more times than he could count. When his grandma passed away in her sleep, he had nobody left. She had raised him since he was a baby, teaching him everything she knew from her years working as a nurse. "Knowledge keeps you alive," she would say, tapping her temple with one finger. "Especially when you've got nothing else." The city of Chicago was huge, busy, and didn't care much about a skinny black kid with no home. The boy learned quickly how to become invisible when needed, and how to be seen when it mattered. He had tried the foster system for exactly 2 weeks before running away. The things he saw there made living on the streets seem better. He found good spots to sleep, the public library during the day where no one bothered a kid reading books, and a hidden corner behind the Italian restaurant at night where the brick wall kept some of the wind away. The restaurant workers sometimes left food out for him, though they pretended not to see him take it. That kind of quiet kindness kept him going. That morning was colder than usual. Fall was turning to winter, and the boy knew he needed to find better shelter soon. He huddled in his regular spot on Harrison Street, watching people hurry past in their warm coats and shiny shoes. No one looked at him. That was normal. His spot gave him a perfect view of the fancy hotel entrance and the small food stands that lined the street. The boy watched everything: which vendors were clean, which ones weren't, which people looked kind, which ones to avoid. Watching kept him safe. "This one here," he whispered to himself, eyeing a food cart with a colorful sign advertising gourmet sandwiches. The boy had been keeping an eye on this vendor for weeks. Something wasn't right. The man smiled big at customers, but did nasty things when no one was looking. Yesterday, the boy had seen him pick up meat that fell on the dirty ground and put it right back in the food. The boy's grandma had taught him all about germs and food safety. "Bacteria can kill you, just as dead as a bullet," she used to say. "Always watch what you eat." He remembered her washing her hands for a full minute before touching any food, singing happy birthday twice to make sure it was long enough. Around 10 in the morning, a tall man in the fanciest suit the boy had ever seen walked out of the hotel. Even from a distance, the boy could tell his shoes cost more than most people's rent. 2 serious-looking men in dark suits walked slightly behind him. Bodyguards, the boy realized. This man was important. The boy watched as the rich man stopped at the corner, pulled out a phone that looked brand new, and started talking loudly about millions of dollars and business deals. The rich man waved his hand around while he talked, then walked over to the sandwich cart without ending his call. The vendor recognized an important customer right away. He smiled extra wide and started making what looked like the best sandwich in his cart. The boy leaned forward, watching closely. The rich man wasn't paying attention, still talking about money on his phone. Then it happened. The vendor dropped a piece of meat on the ground, right on the same spot where the boy had seen dogs peeing earlier that morning. The boy's heart beat faster as he watched the vendor look around quickly, then pick up the meat and put it back on the sandwich when the rich man wasn't looking. The boy didn't think twice. His grandma had raised him right. Even for a rich man who probably wouldn't give him the time of day, he couldn't let this happen. He jumped up from his spot and started running toward the rich man, who was now holding the sandwich and about to take a big bite. "Don't eat that," the boy shouted as loud as he could. Everything seemed to slow down. The rich man froze with the sandwich halfway to his mouth. The bodyguards spun around, their hands moving inside their jackets. The vendor's smile disappeared. The boy skidded to a stop a few feet away from the rich man, breathing hard. People on the street stopped to stare. For a moment, no one moved or said anything. One of the bodyguards stepped toward the boy with a mean look on his face. The boy took a step back, suddenly scared. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. People like him were supposed to stay invisible. But then the rich man did something surprising. He held up his hand, stopping his bodyguard. "Wait," he said in a deep voice. The phone call was forgotten, still connected but now hanging by his side. "Let him speak." The rich man looked at the boy with curious eyes. Not angry, not scared, just interested. The boy had never had an adult look at him that way before, like what he had to say actually mattered. "Why shouldn't I eat this?" the rich man asked, holding up the sandwich. "It looks fine to me." The boy swallowed hard, feeling everyone's eyes on him. The vendor was glaring, shaking his head slightly in warning. But the boy remembered his grandma's words. "Do what's right, even when it's hard." He pointed at the sandwich with a shaky finger. "That man," he said, pointing at the vendor now. "He dropped the meat on the ground while you were on your phone. The dirty ground. And then he picked it up and put it back in your sandwich. He does it all the time. I've been watching." The rich man's eyebrows went up. He looked at the sandwich more carefully now, turning it slightly. There, on the edge of the meat, was a small bit of grit, exactly where the boy had seen it fall. The vendor started talking fast, denying everything, calling the boy a liar and a troublemaker. But the rich man wasn't listening to him anymore. He was looking at the boy with new eyes, as if seeing something he hadn't expected to find on a cold Chicago morning. "You were watching out for me?" the rich man asked quietly. "Why would you do that?" The boy shrugged, suddenly feeling shy. "My grandma always said doing the right thing isn't something you need a reason for. You just do it." The rich man stared at him for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. He smiled. Not a small smile, but a big one that changed his whole face. "What's your name, son?" he asked. The boy hesitated. Names had power. His grandma had taught him to be careful about giving his away. "People just call me Little Man," he said finally. The rich man nodded, like he understood the boy's caution. "Well, Little Man," he said, "I think you and I need to have a talk." And just like that, with 6 simple words, everything in the boy's life was about to change. The rich man's bodyguards looked nervous as their boss waved them back a few steps. One of them whispered something in the rich man's ear, probably a warning about talking to strangers on the street. The rich man just shook his head and turned, his full attention to the boy. "You said this vendor dropped my food on the ground?" the rich man asked, his voice quieter now so only the boy could hear. The boy nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of what he'd done. The vendor was staring at him with eyes that promised trouble later. But he'd started this, and his grandma had always taught him to speak truth all the way through, not just halfway. "Yes, sir." "Right there," the boy pointed at a specific spot, on the pavement. "Where those dogs were earlier this morning." He wrinkled his nose to make his point clear. The rich man looked down at his sandwich again, turning it slowly in his hands. There was a small dark smudge on the edge of the meat, exactly where the boy had indicated. The rich man's face changed as he realized the boy was telling the truth. "I see it," he said, his voice turning cold as he looked at the vendor. The vendor started talking fast, his hands moving everywhere. "The kid is lying. He's just trying to get money from you. These street kids, they make up stories all the time. You can't believe them." The rich man said nothing. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone again. With a few taps, he pulled up something that made his eyebrows rise even higher. "My security team takes photos of everything around me," he said, showing his phone screen to the vendor. "It's just a precaution in my line of work. Looks like they caught your little trick on camera." The vendor's face went pale. The boy couldn't see what was on the phone, but whatever it was enough to make the vendor stop talking mid-sentence. "I'll be making some calls to the health department," the rich man said calmly, sliding his phone back into his pocket. "I suggest you close up shop for the day or permanently." The vendor started packing up his cart, muttering under his breath. The rich man turned his attention back to the boy, who was starting to feel uncomfortable with all the attention. People walking by were slowing down to watch what was happening, and the boy had survived this long by staying invisible. "I should go," the boy said, taking a step back. "Wait," said the rich man. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wallet that looked like it cost more than anything the boy had ever owned. "Let me thank you properly." He pulled out several large bills, more money than the boy had seen in months. The boy looked at the money but didn't reach for it. His grandma had taught him about pride. "I'm not a charity case," she would say, "and neither are you. We help others because it's right, not for what we can get. I don't want your money for telling you something anybody should do, the boy said, putting his hands in his pockets. My grandma always said doing the right thing isn't something you get paid for. The rich man looked surprised, then impressed. He slowly put the money back in his wallet. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman, he said. She was, the boy said quietly, the sadness creeping back into his voice. The best. The rich man seemed to hear something in the boy's voice because his next question was gentler. Was? The boy nodded, looking at his worn-out shoes. She died 3 months ago. Heart just stopped one night. And now? The rich man asked, looking at the boy's thin frame and ragged clothes. Where do you stay? The boy shrugged. Around. I find places. He didn't want to say more. Adults who asked too many questions usually meant trouble. Social workers, police, people who would try to put him in the system again. The rich man seemed to understand the boy's caution. He didn't push for more answers. Instead, he pulled out something else from his pocket, a small white card. My name is on this card, he said, holding it out, and my number. If you need anything, food, a safe place, anything at all, you call this number, day or night. The person who answers works for me. Tell them who you are and that I said to help you. They will. The boy looked at the card but didn't take it right away. Nobody gave something for nothing in his experience. Why would you do that? The boy asked. You don't even know me. The rich man smiled slightly. You just saved me from eating something that could have made me very sick. You did that for a complete stranger, expecting nothing in return. That tells me all I need to know about you. Held the card out a little further. After a moment, the boy took it. The paper felt heavy and fancy between his fingers. Thank you, the boy said, not sure what else to say. No, said the rich man. Thank you. One of the bodyguards cleared his throat then, reminding the rich man of something. The rich man nodded. I have a meeting I need to get to, he said. But I meant what I said about that card. Use it if you need help. The boy nodded, already sliding the card deep into his pocket where it wouldn't fall out or get stolen. The rich man turned to leave, then paused. What's your name? Your real name, not what people call you. The boy hesitated. Names had power. But something about this man made him want to trust him. Little man is fine, he said finally, not giving away his real name but not lying either. The rich man seemed to understand. He nodded once, then turned and walked away, his bodyguards falling into step beside him. The boy watched them go, not sure what had just happened. Then he remembered the vendor, who might be looking for payback, now that the rich man was gone. The boy glanced over, but the cart was already half packed up, the vendor too busy cursing and hurrying to pay him any attention. Smart move, the boy thought. Better to disappear before anyone else noticed what had happened. The boy knew all about disappearing. He turned and melted back into the crowd, becoming invisible once more. But the card in his pocket felt warm against his leg as he walked away. A strange feeling grew in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in 3 months. Hope. The rich man couldn't focus on his meeting. His mind kept wandering back to the skinny boy on the street, a child with nothing who still tried to help a stranger. As the business people around the table talked about profits and acquisitions, their voices began to sound hollow. Let's take a break, he said suddenly, cutting off one of his advisors mid-sentence. The room fell silent. He never took breaks during negotiations. Sir, his assistant asked quietly, something's come up, I need an hour. He stood up, straightening his tie. We'll continue at 2. No one argued. When you were worth billions, people tended to adjust to your schedule. Back in his hotel suite, the rich man paced by the window, looking down at the city streets below. Somewhere out there was a boy who had shown more integrity in one moment than many adults showed in a lifetime. I want to find him, he told his head of security, a serious man who had worked for him for 15 years. The boy from this morning? The security man asked. Yes, the one who warned me about the sandwich. The security man raised an eyebrow but knew better than to question his boss's decisions. We'll need a description, the area he frequents, anything. Else you can tell us. Small for his age, around 12 I'd guess. Black. Worn clothes but clean, all things considered. Goes by Little Man. He was near Harrison Street this morning, but who knows where he might be by now. The security man nodded, already typing notes on his phone. We'll find him, sir. Do you want us to bring him here? The rich man shook his head. No, just locate him. I'll go to him. Sir, with all due respect, that's not advisable for security reasons. Let us bring him to a safe location. He's a child, not a security threat, the rich man said firmly. And I want to see how he lives, where he sleeps. I want to understand. The security man knew that tone. There would be no changing the rich man's mind. Yes, sir. We'll start looking. Immediately. The boy spent the day doing what he always did, surviving. He collected bottles and cans from trash bins, trading them in for a few dollars at the recycling center. He found half a sandwich someone had thrown away and ate it slowly, making it last. He browsed books at the public library, soaking up knowledge and warmth at the same time. As evening approached, he made his way to his sleeping spot behind the Italian restaurant. The back alley wasn't much, but the kitchen vents blew out warm air and the brick wall blocked the wind. He had arranged some cardboard boxes to make a small shelter, hidden from immediate view. The restaurant's back door opened, and the cook, a large man with a kind face, looked around before setting down a small container. Hey kid, the cook called out softly. Got some extra pasta tonight. Shame to throw it away. The boy waited until the cook went back inside before approaching the food. This was their routine. The cook pretending he was just getting rid of extras. The boy pretending he just happened to find it. Everyone kept their pride that way. The pasta was still warm with bits of chicken and vegetables mixed in. Real food, not just scraps. The boy ate slowly, savoring each bite. As he finished, he heard footsteps at the entrance to the alley. His muscles tensed, ready to run if needed. 3 men in dark suits appeared, looking out of place in the dirty alley. The boy recognized 2 of them as the rich man's bodyguards from that morning. The third man was new but had the same watchful eyes. They scanned the alley until they spotted him. There he is, one of them said quietly. The boy jumped to his feet, ready to bolt. Street smarts told him that adults looking for you usually meant trouble. Wait, son, the third man called out. We're not here to hurt you. The boss just wants to talk. The boy paused at the edge of the alley, 1 foot ready to run. What boss? The man you helped this morning. The one with the sandwich. The boy's hand went to his pocket, feeling the outline of the business card he'd been given. He sent you to find me. Yes. He'd like to speak with you if you're willing. The boy hesitated. On one hand, the rich man had seemed okay. On the other hand, adults were tricky. Nice 1 minute, calling social services the next. He's not calling. The authorities, the man said, as if reading the boy's thoughts. He gave us strict instructions. This is just a conversation, nothing more. You can walk away anytime. The boy considered his options. Running meant giving up his sleeping spot. Staying meant taking a risk. But something about the rich man had seemed different. And hadn't his grandma always said you could tell a lot about someone by looking in their eyes? Where is he? The boy asked finally. In the car, at the end of the street. He didn't want to crowd you in the alley. That was considerate, the boy thought. Most adults would have just barged in. I'll talk to him, the boy decided. But out here, not in the car. The man nodded and spoke into his wrist. A minute later, the rich man appeared at the alley entrance, now wearing a more casual outfit. Expensive still, but not the fancy suit from earlier. Thank you for agreeing to see me, the rich man said, walking forward slowly. He looked around, the alley, taking in the cardboard shelter, the few possessions neatly arranged beside it. His eyes lingered on the empty food container the boy had just finished. This is where you sleep? He asked quietly. The boy shrugged. It's not so bad. The restaurant keeps it clean, and the vents blow out warm air. The rich man nodded, but something in his face changed. A tightness around his eyes, a slight clenching of his jaw. "I've been thinking about you all day," the rich man said. "Couldn't focus on my meetings." The boy didn't know what to say to that, so he stayed quiet. "You know, I meet with important people every day," the rich man continued. "CEOs, politicians, celebrities, people who run countries and companies. But what you did this morning..." He shook his head slowly. "That kind of honesty is rare." "It wasn't a big deal," the boy mumbled, uncomfortable with the praise. "It was to me." The rich man gestured to the cardboard shelter. "May I?" The boy nodded, and the rich man carefully sat down on the edge of the cardboard. For a moment they just sat in silence, an odd pair in an alley, a billionaire and a homeless boy. "You mentioned your grandmother earlier," the rich man said finally. "The one who taught you about doing the right thing." The boy nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "She raised me since I was a baby. Worked as a nurse for 40 years before. She retired. Always helping people, that was her thing. She sounds remarkable." She was. The boy picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. "She got sick last winter but kept going anyway. Heart finally gave out 3 months ago. And there was no one else to take you in?" The boy shook his head. "No family left. They put me in foster care, but..." He trailed off, not wanting to talk about those 2 awful weeks. The rich man seemed to understand what wasn't being said. "So you left?" "Yeah. And school?" The boy looked down. "I try to keep up. Read books at the library. I was good at math and science before, you know, before you had to focus on surviving." The rich man finished for him. The boy nodded. The rich man was quiet for a long moment, looking at the boy with thoughtful eyes. "You know," he said finally, "I have a big hotel suite with an extra bedroom that's just sitting empty, and I've got meetings in this city for the next few days." The boy looked up, not sure what the rich man was suggesting. "What if..." The rich man continued carefully. "You stayed there just for a few days, hot showers, real food, a proper bed, no strings attached. If you don't like it, you can leave any time." The boy's heart beat faster. A real bed sounded amazing after months of sleeping on cardboard, but life had taught him to be cautious. "Why would you do that for me?" he asked. "You don't even know me." The rich man smiled slightly. "Let's just say your grandmother's lessons made an impression on me too." The boy stood in the middle of the hotel suite, trying not to touch anything. Everything looked too clean, too perfect. The carpet was so thick his worn-out sneakers sank into it. A single lamp in the room probably cost more than everything he had owned in his life. "You can sit down," the rich man said gently. "The furniture is meant to be used." Carefully, the boy perched on the edge of a cream-colored sofa. It was softer than he expected. When was the last time he'd sat on something soft? He couldn't remember. "Are you hungry?" the rich man asked, walking to a phone on the wall. The boy started to shake his head, then stopped. His grandma had taught him another lesson too. False pride helps no one. "Yes," he admitted. "I could eat." The rich man smiled. "Good. Me too." He pressed a button on the phone. "Room service? I'd like to order dinner for 2. He looked at the boy. "Any allergies? Foods you don't like?" The boy shook his head. "When you're hungry most days, you don't get picky. We'll have 2 of the steak. Dinners," the rich man continued. "Medium, and a chocolate cake for dessert." He paused. "And could you send up some new clothes?" "For a boy about 12. Everything, shirts, pants, underwear, socks, and shoes." He looked at the boy's feet. "Size 6, I'd guess. Make it 6 and 7, we'll see what fits." The boy's eyes widened. "I don't need..." The rich man held up his hand. "It's not charity, it's practicality. You need clean clothes, I can provide them. Simple as that." After hanging up, the rich man showed him the bathroom, a room bigger than some apartments the boy had seen. "Take a shower if you want. Plenty of hot water." The boy hesitated. A hot shower sounded like heaven after months of quick washes in public restrooms. But it felt wrong somehow, like he was taking advantage. The rich man seemed to read his thoughts. Look, I understand pride. My own father worked 3 jobs to put food on our table, but he also taught me that sometimes you need to accept help when it's offered, not because you're weak, but because it's the smart thing to do. The boy looked up in surprise. Your dad worked 3 jobs? But He gestured vaguely at the luxury around them. The rich man laughed. I wasn't born into money, far from it. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The noise of those machines is still the soundtrack of my childhood. His face grew more serious. I worked hard to get where I am, but I also had chances that others didn't. Opportunities, people who believed in me. Something in the boy shifted slightly, a crack in the wall he'd built around himself. Maybe this man really did understand. Go on, the rich man encouraged. Take that shower. Food should be here by the time you're done. 20 minutes later, the boy emerged feeling like a new person. The hot water had washed away weeks of city grime, and hotel shampoo had his hair feeling soft again. He'd put his old clothes back on. They were all he had, but even they felt better against clean skin. The food had arrived. Plates of steaming steak, potatoes, vegetables, and a chocolate cake that made the boy's mouth water just looking at it. Several shopping bags sat near the door, but the rich man didn't mention them yet. First, they ate. The boy tried to use his manners, cutting small bites, chewing slowly like his grandma had taught him. But it had been so long since he'd had a real meal that his hunger took over. The rich man didn't seem to mind or judge. He just pushed the bread basket closer when the boy finished his first slice. When I was your age, the rich man said between bites, I was already working after school, stocking shelves at the corner store. The owner would let me take home food that was about to expire. I remember how that felt, like Christmas every time. The boy nodded, understanding completely. The cook at the Italian restaurant sometimes leaves food out for me. Pretends he's just throwing it away so I don't feel bad taking it. Good man, that cook, the rich man said. Yeah. The boy looked down at his plate. There are good people everywhere. Most folks just don't notice us. The ones living on the street, I mean. It's like we're invisible. But you noticed me today, the rich man pointed out. You made yourself very visible to help a stranger. The boy shrugged. That was different. Was it? The rich man set down his fork. Most people would have kept walking. Maybe laughed at the rich guy about to eat dirty food, but you didn't. You put yourself at risk to help someone who probably wouldn't have done the same for you. The boy hadn't thought of it that way. It wasn't a big deal, he mumbled. It was to me. The rich man pushed his empty plate aside. Tell me something. Before your grandmother passed away, what did you want to be when you grew up? The question caught the boy off guard. It had been months since he'd thought beyond the next meal or the next safe place to sleep. A doctor, he said softly. Like my grandma wanted to be, before she had to raise me instead. She was a nurse, but she always said I could go further. The rich man nodded, his eyes thoughtful. Did you get good grades? Before, I mean. Straight A's, the boy said, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. My grandma wouldn't accept anything less. Said education was the only way out. She was right. The rich man was quiet for a moment, then took a deep breath. I've been thinking. My company has a foundation that helps kids who've fallen through the cracks of the system. Bright kids who just need a chance. The boy tensed. Was this heading where he thought it was? I'm not talking about foster care, the rich man said quickly, noticing the boy's reaction. Nothing like that. I'm talking about a scholarship, a good school, a place to live with people who'll look after you properly, a future. The boy's heart pounded in his chest. It sounded too good to be true, and in his experience, if something sounded too good to be true, it usually was. Why would you do all that for me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The rich man leaned forward. Because today you showed me something rare. Character. Integrity. The kind of person who does the right thing even when no one's watching. or especially when no one's watching. He shook his head slightly. Do you know how valuable that is? How rare? I have employees making millions who don't have half the character you showed today. The boy looked down at his hands. I just did what my grandma would have wanted. Exactly. The rich man smiled. And I'd like to help you continue what she started, but he held up a finger. This is your choice. No pressure. Take some time to think about it. The boy nodded slowly, his mind racing with possibilities he hadn't allowed himself to consider in months. A real school. A safe place to sleep every night. A future. Can I ask one question? The boy said. Of course. What happened to that sandwich? Guy? The one who dropped the food? The rich man laughed. Let's just say he won't be serving food to anyone else anytime soon. My security team made some calls to the health department. They found issues. For the first time in months, the boy smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes. Good, he said. Because he was doing that to other people too. Not just you. The rich man nodded. I know. That's why what you did matters so much. You weren't just helping me, you were helping everyone. 2 years can change everything. The boy stood in front of the mirror, hardly recognizing himself. Gone was the skinny kid from the streets. In his place stood a healthy teenager in a crisp school uniform, navy blue blazer with a school crest, gray pants, polished shoes. His hair was neatly cut, his eyes clear and focused. Ready for the big day? Asked the woman at the doorway. She was in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile that reminded him a little of his grandma. The boy nodded, straightening his tie one last time. I think so, Miss H. Miss H had been his guardian since the rich man had arranged everything. She wasn't trying to replace his grandma. No one could do that. But she'd given him something he'd lost. Stability. A home. Someone who cared if he came home on time, ate his vegetables and did his homework. He'll be here any minute, Miss H said, checking her watch. Better grab your speech. The boy picked up the folded paper from his desk. He'd worked on it for weeks, wanting to get the words just right. Today was important, not just for him, but for all the kids like him. The doorbell rang. Miss H smiled. That'll be him. 2 years, and he's never once been late. The boy took a deep breath and walked downstairs. When he opened the front door, the rich man was standing there, though the boy no longer thought of him that way. Over the past 2 years, he'd become something else. A mentor, a friend. Look at you, the rich man said, smiling widely. Ready to change the world today? The boy smiled back. One step at a time, like you taught me. They drove through the city in a sleek black car, passing the very streets where the boy had once searched for food and safe places to sleep. The city looked different now, not because it had changed, but because he had. Nervous about your speech? The rich man asked as they turned onto Lakeshore Drive. A little, the boy admitted. There'll be a lot of important people there. Including you, the rich man reminded him. Never forget that. They pulled up to a gleaming new building with a sign that read, Don't eat that foundation. The boy still smiled every time he saw the name. Inside, a crowd had gathered for the grand opening. Business leaders, city officials, reporters, and, most importantly to the boy, dozens of kids from the streets and troubled homes, all wearing the same uniforms he wore. The past 2 years had been a whirlwind. After that night in the hotel, the rich man had been true to his word. The boy had been enrolled in a top private school with a full scholarship. He'd moved in with Miss H, a retired teacher who worked with the foundation to provide homes for kids with nowhere else to go. But the rich man hadn't stopped there. That chance meeting on the street had changed him too. He'd created an entire foundation dedicated to finding kids like the boy. Smart, capable children who just needed a chance. Kids who had fallen through the cracks of the system. Don't eat. That wasn't just a foundation. It was now a school, a dormitory, a medical clinic, and a food safety education program all in one. And today was the official opening. The rich man took the stage first, adjusting the microphone. 2 years ago, he began. I was about to eat a sandwich from a street vendor when a young boy shouted, "Don't eat that." That warning saved me from getting very sick, but it did something much more important too. It reminded me that character isn't about how much money you have or where you live. It's about doing the right thing, even when there's nothing in it for you. The crowd listened intently as the rich man continued. That boy had nothing. He was living on the streets after losing his grandmother. He was hungry and alone. But he still took the time to warn a stranger about bad food. That moment changed my life. The rich man gestured toward the boy sitting in the front row. I'd like to introduce you to that young man now. He's going to tell you his story himself. Heart pounding, the boy walked up to the stage. From the podium, he could see the whole room: reporters with cameras, business people in fancy suits, and kids just like he had been, wearing their new school uniforms and looking up at him with hope in their eyes. He unfolded his speech, took a deep breath, and began. My grandma always told me that doing the right thing isn't something you get paid for. You just do it because it's right. He looked up from his paper. 2 years ago, I was homeless, sleeping behind a restaurant and digging through trash for food. Today, I'm standing here with straight A's, a safe place to live, and a future I can actually see. He paused, looking at the faces watching him. People think homeless kids are invisible, but we're not. We see everything. We notice when food vendors drop meat on dirty ground. We notice which alleys are safe to sleep in. We notice which adults will help and which ones will hurt. We're not invisible. We're just unseen. A hush fell over the room as he continued. This foundation isn't just about giving us food or a place to stay. It's about seeing us, really seeing us, and letting us know that we matter too. He looked directly at the rich man now. 2 years ago, a man who could have bought anything he wanted gave me something money can't buy. He gave me a chance. Not because I was special, but because he took the time to really see me. The boy gestured to the other kids in uniform. Now we have 37 students here, all with stories like mine. And by next year we'll have 100. Kids who just need someone to see them. Because once you're really seen, you can't become invisible again. Tears glistened in more than a few eyes as the boy finished speaking. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Reporters snapped photos. The rich man stepped forward and put his arm around the boy's shoulders. Later, as they cut the ribbon on the new building, a reporter asked the rich man how much the foundation had cost him. Millions, the rich man replied without hesitation, and it was the best investment I've ever made. The boy stood nearby, listening. What about you? The reporter asked, turning to him. How has this changed your life? The boy thought for a moment. I used to think I was nothing, he said finally. Just a kid no one wanted. Now I know better. My grandma was right all along. Doing the right thing matters. Sometimes it changes everything. That evening, after all the excitement had died down, the boy and the rich man sat on a bench outside the new building. You did good today, kid, the rich man said. We both did, the boy replied. The rich man nodded. Your grandma would be proud. The boy looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. I think she knows, he said softly. I think she's been watching all along. For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds who'd found something rare between them. Respect, understanding, and a shared belief that doing the right thing, even in something as simple as a warning about food, could change everything. So, the rich man said finally, still want to be a doctor? The boy smiled, thinking about how far he'd come and how far he still could go. Yes, he said. But not just any doctor. I want to work with kids like me, the ones everyone else forgets, to see. The rich man nodded, pride evident in his eyes. Then that's exactly what you'll do. And in that moment, on that bench, the boy knew it was true. From homeless to hopeful, from invisible to seen, all because he'd shouted, "Don't eat that!"